This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them lang loji, now you got them bongolo. Long time got them lang loji, now you got them bongolo. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. Long time got them juk lamp, now you got them electric light. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. Long time got them broad bottom, now you got them tight straight. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. Long time got them broad churia, now you got them bamboo jai. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time pulam bukit wata, now you got them overhead. Long time pulam bukit wata, now you got them overhead. Long time pulam bukit wata, now you got them overhead. Long time pulam bukit wata, now you got them overhead. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not a before time. Long time got them ulul man, now you got them yong bye. Long time got the ulul man, now you got them yong.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to 107.1 FM. I am Dinesh Jaiprashad, and I'm very much delighted to be with you once again so that we can be able to share as to what really is happening in region number 6 in Berbice in Guyana as it relates to the development of this wonderful nation. Um, Before we get into the program, I must say that we need to share the link and invite their friends so that everyone can be able to receive the message that we will bring to you tonight. Remember, those of you listening on the ground, viewing, and wherever you are joining 107.1 FM, I must say special thanks for taking time off to listen to us so that we can be able to share our word and our information with you. You have been supporting us tremendously, and for that, I am saying that we need to continue to work together so that we can be able to honor ourselves, the place that we will be able to take care of this nation and most importantly, take care of the people of this wonderful country. As I speak, there are many things happening in Guyana, and with a sad mode, I am saying that the the health facilities need to step up. We are having too many casualties within our health ministry. The minister responsible for health, sir, the Guyanese people is calling upon you. All of us are calling on you to do what is right. Not so long ago, we had a young lady who passed, Vanessa Lewis, and recently, a few days ago, another young lady at our medical facility. These individuals went in there and, like any other pregnant mother, went to do what is necessary to have a child, with the intention and the expectation that the state provides proper services, and to walk in there, to be taken there by your relatives and family, um, well alive, and to come out in a box is not so nice. It is not reflecting as to the services that we should have in this country. So those individuals who have served the Ministry of Health, and you know that you can advise these individuals working currently, do that. These individuals working in the health facilities, if you know that you need some help, seek out. And most importantly, the Honorable Minister, sir, you need to step up. You promised an investigation, inquiry the last time, and I see that you are promising one again. I hope this is not a promise for vote, but try to get it fixed. The poor people are paying too much taxes in this country and to receive trash service. The poor people are suffering at the hands of poor management and poor systems. Fix it, because come next election, we know that the poor people will be fixing up some systems. So tonight with me is a wonderful young man who will be talking to us about the economic situation in Guyana and what can be done so that we can be able to continue to feed ourselves and most importantly help this wonderful country of ours. And joining my special guest tonight is another member of parliament who is from region number one, Ronald Cox, the Honorable MP. Good night to you, sir. Good night to you, Elson Lowe. Um, it's, I think
Good
your
night.
mic. So it's a pleasure to have you guys tonight. And as I indicated earlier, we will have Mr. Ronald Cox a few minutes telling us as to what really is happening in Region One, and then we will go right into tonight's big chunk of literally allowing Mr. Elson Lowe to take us through some time as to explain to us how we as a Guyanese people can be able to survive what is happening here economically, and more so what we need to do, should do, what we can do so that we can be able to cut ends, so that we can survive this great economic and financial difficulty that we are going through. I know that that is your stronghold, sir. So let us allow Honorable Ronald Cox to make a few remarks. Ronald, are you hearing me? You see, Ronald is from Region 1, and the internet there is not so to par. So we might be seeing him, but the interactivity is not that much. Elson, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, sorry about that. I think the internet is getting good. So we will take it from there. Before you go, Elson, I wish to say to our listeners and viewers that Elson is a Guyanese who has been shining throughout his work and his time here. To take us back when he was pretty much younger, he was one of the head prefect for our premier secondary education institution, Queen's College. And then he moved to the United States where he studied political science and economics. Political science and economics. And having worked in the United States, Elson decided to come back to Guyana and serve. This is something that is uniquely strange, whereby most of our young people going overseas to study finds a job there, settles there, and that's the end. But sir, it is very, very important that you can, take the time off to come to Guyana back, return home, and serve in the capacity that you are serving. And I wish to mention that Mr. Elson Lowe has been working with our opposition leader in terms of advice, in terms of policy and economic development, youth as well. So he has a wealth of knowledge as it relates to the whole story about the economic growth and viability of our nation. So to you, sir, give us a little introduction, a little brief as to, why some of the things that you are doing, and we take it from there.
Sure, thank you, thank you. So I guess to texture my background a little bit, so I studied economics and political science at Amherst College, which is a small but very good school in Massachusetts. While I was there, I was able to get some training in public policy from the Roosevelt Institute in Washington, D.C. After that, I worked at Goldman Sachs & Co., which is the premier investment bank really in the world. Then I came back, I worked at the State Asset Recovery Agency for some time with a focus on the oil and gas industry. And then obviously after that agency was closed, I transitioned to assisting the leader of the opposition as economic advisor first, and now in a more general advisory role. Now, while I was at Sarah, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to spend a lot of time researching the oil and gas industry, researching the economies that have a substantial oil and gas base, so that we can get a sense of what it is that we should anticipate from this oil and gas economy. What are some of the challenges, and we're seeing some of those play out right now, and how we need to address those challenges. In particular, obviously, I would have had a focus on anti-corruption activities. Now, from that perspective, what we see going on in Guyana, some of it is connected certainly to the pandemic, but other things are connected to the broader situation, which is that as an oil and gas producing country, we're going to start to see changes. One of the changes that you hear a lot of people speak about is that the price of property has gone up substantially, and that the price in particular of rent has gone up substantially. Now, the reason that that is something that we really need to focus on is that the wages that you earn in the oil and gas sector, especially with a lot of these foreign technical individuals, would be high wages, and so they can afford to pay quite a bit for rent. And often the oil and gas companies themselves will rent out places for their workers. Now, if they're paying a very high amount for rent, that's going to drive up the price of rent across the country, because all of the houses that you might have had access to, you can no longer afford as a local person, not in the oil and gas industry, to pay those types of rents. So that is just something that we need to look at closely, because we will need to make sure that there's enough housing so that especially young people do not suffer from not being able to afford to get a good place to live, and from not being able to actually afford to get a house to live in. But that really is just the first stage, or the first indication of the changes that are to come. Because with oil, you have a lot of complications and other things that you must work through. This is one price increase, but I anticipate many other price increases as wages get higher. And so that will lead to inflation, and we will have to look at how we mitigate inflation so that Guyanese's standard of living improves with the coming of oil. And as much as oil, we see it as a great benefit, and it is a great benefit. There are countries in which the standard of living fell after they got oil, like Equatorial Guinea. and that's a country which is one of the most corrupt in the world, but which shares, unfortunately, some similarities to our own situation. And so as a result of that, we needed to really keep our eye on the ball as to what precautions we have to take to move things forward, but also to avoid these serious threats. I know that that's a bit heavy. I
I
don't
know, I
want to
know.
pop in the mood at all.
Yeah, because I'm listening and I'm making some notes, and I'm looking how is it that the economic activity is causing us to feel such a blunt already of the world economic situation, and we know that people are saying that we have oil now and things will be better. Everything that we have will carry up value, but when we're looking at the side effects, we are seeing that we are already starting to feel some squeeze in terms of prices for commodities, and as you rightly mentioned, price for property and rent and so are basically going up at the thing. What can we do as a growing nation? What can our young people do? If you want to take it by stage, in terms of the academics and job quests and what we could do as a young nation so that we can
Yeah.
be able to benefit maximum from this oil.
Yes, absolutely. So the obvious thing, just on the back of what we're talking about with housing, is we need to ensure that we have as much housing as possible developed, so that people have access to low cost housing, especially people who are of low income. But that is one side of things. Really, one of the things that I was able to research is, I was able to comprehensively research the entire history of various oil countries, Norway being one of them. And that gives you a good perspective as to what the best practices are in countries that have succeeded, as well as what the dangers are in countries that have done a poor job with oil, such as our good neighbor, which I always say that if you gave Venezuela more oil, things would only get worse. But we'll discuss that. But the point being that there are some things that we need to focus on, and these are the things that we're not seeing the PPP really focus on. One being, we have local content legislation that is going to be laid. We're having local content discussions. But really, what the Norwegians emphasized is skills transfer, knowledge transfer, training. And as a result of those types of efforts, Norway's oil and gas industry has over 120,000 people employed there, and has over 1,200 businesses, local businesses that are involved in oil and gas production, all the different stages of that production. So they have been able to really maximize the use of local content and local businesses to ensure that oil companies are not always importing labor. Because one of what we are a little concerned about is we're hearing now the vice president talking about the importation of skilled labor, and of course we'll need to import some labor. I agree, but we need to be training people here to ensure that they can fill these posts and to ensure that Guyanese are benefiting. I always point to this gold scholarship program that they put forward, which I'm never going to be against a scholarship program. But that program did not really heavily emphasize oil and gas. There was a wide range of things that were offered, and I think one or two oil and gas programs. We need to have a real focus on training, and programs like scholarship programs, international scholarship programs, should be heavily focused on oil and gas to ensure that we have people that can fill these slots. Because it is very easy for oil and gas companies to keep telling us that we don't have trained people, we don't have trained people, they have to bring in people. And then we never really have any, effective local content when it comes to people working in the industry. And that would be a real crying shame. I see also that the vice president has mentioned that they want to have a oil and gas training school for about 1,000 people a year. But it's conceivable that we could have. I think there are studies that indicate that in Guyana there's about 60,000 people that could be transitioned into the growing oil and gas economy, because that's the amount of labor that is underutilized, or the number of people that are unemployed and so on. I mean, if we're going to train 1,000 people a year, and we have 60,000 people that we want to mobilize, that's 60 years,
It's 60
right?
years.
That's not right. So, and I think that that kind of approach to policy making is what is concerning about the way the PPP has been approaching it, because you have to look at studies and you have to come up with strategic plans and timelines, and your policies have to be tied to those plans. You can't just be calling things off the top of your head, and oh, 1,000 sounds like a nice number, but is 1,000 a lot or is 1,000 a little? And it looks currently like 1,000 is a little. you know there are 400 to 500 gold scholarships, I believe, going out this year. It would have been nice, excuse me, if we had 400 to 500 of those that were in the oil and gas field, so we can really get that going. It would also be nice for us to be emphasizing training and assisting our local companies to get them up to scratch, you know, because otherwise, how are we realistically going to compete with these international companies? And that is what Norway did so well. They really emphasized that, and they built that out over a period of time. And so as a result, they've got a really flourishing industry there. So what we have to do is to ensure that we're doing the right studies, we're putting in place the right plans, and we're not just doing things off the top of our head. And there's other examples which concern me about the way that the PPP has approached projects. The Gasture project is another great example that it sometimes seems like the PPP is just doing things off of the top of their head.
I want to take us back a little bit about the skills transfer and what the vice president made mention about importing labor. I want you to put it for our Guyanese context, that show that if we have the skill set here, we will save this amount because we will not have to import from Trinidad or any other country the skills that we put it so that
Yes, well, I think essentially the crux of it is this: if we have a high paying job in the oil and gas sector, we would prefer that a Guyanese is able to benefit from these high wages. Right? That's the plain and simple meat of this. And as a result, that Guyanese has a better standard of life and can put that money in the Guyanese economy. Now, while we may need Trinidadian, as an example, expertise because they have been heavily involved in oil and gas, we don't know whether the Trinidadian folks that come will be sending money back to Trinidad, you see, rather than spending that money in the Guyanese economy.
In Guyanese, right.
Right. And so what we want as much as possible is to use local individuals for that reason. We want to directly benefit our citizens, but we want to ensure that the proceeds, that the benefits, that the profits of oil are spent in the Guyanese economy so we have maximum benefit. Right. Now, that is not to say that it's not useful to have international labor, because when they come in, they're high earners, and we'll be able to get some tax revenue from that. But the point being that that is something that must be done only where we can't fill those positions. And
Correct.
as we educate our population, we would anticipate that you'd see less and less of that. You know, of course, if you do not educate your population accordingly, then what's going to happen? You're going to have a lot of foreigners in here, and local Guyanese are going to be crying out because they can't get access to high paying jobs, while at the same time, cost of living is increasing.
Thank you very much. So, viewers, listeners, 107.1 FM on the ground, wherever you are hearing it for yourself. If we have our young people being trained for the next 4 or 5 years in the oil and gas area, then we will be able to take some of those jobs. At the moment, we do not have the expertise that much, so we will depend on overseas labor. But if we are to survive in this industry for the next 20, 30 years, it means then that we must be forward thinking in terms of setting up systems so that our young people can be able to have the necessary skills so that they will manage, we will manage. And what Mr. Lowe made mention is very, very important. Keep the money in Guyana. So we will earn our money. We will work, we will accumulate, we will use that money to build and do so many things for ourselves and family. Instead of a foreigner who is being given that big job, high paying job, and super salary job, and takes the money to another country. That is why we need to ensure that our young people have the necessary skills and tools. Sir, what is your take on the rise in the cost of living? Is this because of the pandemic, or we have poor management, or what really is your take on it?
Well, there's two driving factors. The first, as we've mentioned, is the oil and gas industry is driving up the prices in certain areas. But also, the pandemic, because it has caused a lot of shortages due to the closure of various things during lockdowns and due to supply constraints. Lots of ships not being able to get access to ports to bring in goods and so on. That has also caused a lot of inflation internationally. But what I'd say is it's not just about the inflation that you have, it's about your response to that to ensure that people standard of living does not fall. And I think many Guyanese I think many Guyanese who have not the highest income have certainly seen a fall in their standard of living because wages have not gone up in the country that I'm aware of. But inflation has substantially increased. We didn't even see public servant wages increase, in the last year. So wages are the same, but the costs have increased. Now, the response to that, really throughout the pandemic, should have been to provide economic stimulus to people who especially needed it. Now, there are some cash grant stimulus that's been provided, but I think it's been not anywhere near the amount that it needed to be. Nowhere near the amount that it needed to be. And I think as a result of that, the economy has not performed as well as it may otherwise have performed. As an example, in some developed countries like the US, you see that household savings and household income did not decline during the pandemic because they received a lot of support. Now, here in Guyana, people like to say, "Oh, we can't afford this, we can't afford that." But I trust that you'll recall that we've put out the largest budget in the country's history, right? That's
So
one
true.
thing yeah, and we were able to find monies for various industries like we were for Kaisuko, the grants to
True, true.
sugar workers. We found money for a lot of things, and it's important for us also to understand that as much as we are paying higher prices, we're an oil producer, and so we've been getting higher revenue. In fact, Guyana's revenue estimates generally look at $40 to $50 long-term price for oil. But currently, oil is at in excess of $80 a barrel. So what's been going on is that we've been raking in a lot of cash, extensive amounts of money we've been raking in, right? But we've not been distributing that to ease the burden of people during what really is a natural disaster, right? And
But
so as
sir,
a result, yes.
yeah, yeah, if I may, you are saying literally that there is scope in Guyana for the policymakers, the ministers, and the government of the day to put systems in place so that there can be more stimulus and relief to the people. Do we have the
Yeah,
capacity that?
what I'm saying is that because we are also benefiting from the spike in prices because we're an oil producer, that means that we're earning more than our long-term estimate might indicate. And given that we have been through a natural disaster, one would anticipate a government to provide relief to help people through the natural disaster, which is COVID-19. But we also experienced a flood. So you saw that they gave out some payments regarding the flood, but that's controversial because there's a lot of allegations that people didn't get and there's corruption. But my point being, though, that essentially, if we have a natural disaster, we have to respond to it robustly in order to keep the economy going and in order to help us to move forward as a country. We've barely had any cash grant stimulus, whereas other countries have had extensive cash grant stimulus, including multiple rounds. We just had, the one round there, and there's a lot of allegations that people didn't get and so on and so forth. One of the other problems that we had with our cash grant distribution is the way that it was not done on the basis of income. And let me explain what I mean there. We did not focus on the poorest areas or the lowest income areas receiving the cash grant first. We just did it regionally, outlying regions and then centrally. And as a result of that, some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Guyana, your Prashad Najars, your Bel-Airs, and so on, received their cash grant around the same time as Sophia, which is one of the lowest income areas in the country. And as a result of that, we then didn't get the full benefit of the cash grants because those who most needed the money to prop them up during the lockdown and to prop them up during these difficult times did not necessarily receive the money first. So that type of poor planning is I think really typical of the PPP, and is very different than other countries where the people with the lowest income was who received it first. So I think our response to the pandemic has been very poor from an economic standpoint, and as a result of that, we're seeing high inflation without people really getting any kind of a buffer to make life a bit easier for them.
Thank you very much, sir. Indeed, that is very, very important. I mean, looking at some comparisons from some other nations, we are saying the people have been saying that the entire cash grant COVID relief and so had so many flaws that we could have taken some good thinkers right here in Guyana to say, here what happens. This is not a PPP situation or a APNU AFC situation. This is a Guyana situation. COVID is here on us. Let us put aside the political connection as an affiliation, and let us bring a 10, 15, 20 good thinkers, economists and good thinkers, so that we can have a plan to go forward and help the people. And you rightly said, there are some individuals who did not literally, should not receive the $25,000 because they're they are earning so much, and
Yes,
some individuals who are very much in poverty, who could have received the 50,000 instead of 25,000 based on the needs assessment being done. And I am happy that you are saying that we need to look at what is happening around the world, and we need to re-examine the package that the Guyanese people have received. We received 25,000, and we were told it's big thing that Guyana giving 25,000 and that's it. But in looking at the United States, basically, people receive on basis of income because the rents, the state take care of that. The rents and so many other bills were taken care of. Food were given to them, food items basically, and they had so much to live on. In contrary, our Guyanese context, we give them 25,000, and we know 25,000 can feed a family of six basically for a week, much less for a year. And we are saying that we are. So I would say, I mean, you are on target in terms of saying that we have poor economic planning, and we just cannot think of the cuff tonight for tomorrow. I wish to remind viewers that we have good thinkers and good brains in this country. We have individuals who have the capabilities and the capacity to plan economically for this nation. That is why tonight I invited you, sir, so that the people can hear that we have individuals who have been doing a lot of work, and more so, if given the opportunity, individuals like you will take our economic sector into a next trajectory. So what can you say to the families, people who are barely surviving? What is your advice to them? What should they do? How to cut and what to do to be able to survive this? Because we see that the state is not stepping in to help them in any way that will be so beneficial. We know that wages and salaries were not increased. There has been no subsidy to GPL, GTNT, GWI. People still paying the flat rate um, and so many things happening. So what is your advice to the poor people of this nation? What they could do to survive for the next few months, so that we can be able to get through this as one people.
Well, the first thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that many of these effects will be temporary. So we're trying to hold our breath. Hopefully we're coming to the end of things and things will get better. But the second thing is, I think people need to speak out as much as possible to let the administration know and to let the general public know, as much as they do know, that this is not acceptable, and we really need more assistance to help people to live in this country. Cost of living cannot be going up, and we're in one of the most difficult periods in our entire our country's and the world's history. you know so we need to, people need to try and advocate as much as they can. Obviously we are advocating and pushing for more from the government, but that is really what needs to happen. But hopefully as the pandemic winds down, we'll see some easing, but that is related to the pandemic connected factors. But those factors that are related to the oil and gas industry will only get worse. We recently, I don't know if many people were paying attention, but we saw the second FPSO, the production vessel that extracts the oil, arrive in Guyana. And this one is capable of producing about double the amount that the previous one was capable of producing. And so we're producing more oil. There's going to be more workers, from the oil and gas industry here. We're going to see more of these high-paid jobs, and so you should anticipate that we're going to see more of these side effects of oil and gas production. And so the question is, what are the long-term steps that are being taken to ensure that these issues are mitigated, these problems do not turn into a permanent malaise, and Guyanese actually see the benefits of the oil and gas industry. And obviously, if we don't take the appropriate steps, there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction locally, and and people's standards of living will be in trouble.
So basically, if the current administration does not manage this oil sector effectively, we can be Venezuela number two.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that is not to say, because there are contexts in which cash grants are appropriate, right? There are situations where you want to help out a certain group and so on. But you have to have an idea of why you're doing it, and you have to have some sort of a plan and a structure. As much as we're sympathetic to the plight of sugar workers and so on, we're dismissed. We understand that. It you get the impression that the PPP just woke up one day and said, "Oh, we're going to give away $250,000 per person." But why not 300,000? Why not 350? Why not 150? Why not? You see what I'm trying to say? What's the plan? What specific reason was there to give out this specific amount of money? Was there a plan? And so that sounds to me like Venezuela, where anytime you're in a little bit of trouble or you don't like something, you throw out some cash and you hope that that will save the day. And I'll tell you one interesting thing. You know how much is in Venezuela's sovereign wealth fund? Because they have a sovereign wealth fund. Not much. There's not much in there. And that's because they have just given away the money left, right, and center without managing and their industries, because there was a time when the oil and gas industry was not just about oil. They had lots of other industries that were connected to that, chemical industries and so on, which contributed to the economy. But they did not manage it well. They gave away the money left, right, and center without having a structure and a plan. And as a result, things really went downhill. So as much as we want to see assistance to citizens, again, why not 300,000? Why not 150,000 to the sugar workers? Why not 1,000,000? What is the reason for this amount? And for this, why didn't they break it into two payments? There must be a justification. Otherwise, it's just whatever you feel like you do.
Exactly. And some Guyanese are saying that, why is it that we can't get 100,000 to each household? Why is it that we are not working on the salary for the public servants and all these other areas? And we know the nature of the PVP. They will try to work on their vote base from now. So we see that playing out already. But we wish them well, and we know that sooner rather than later we will be having elections, and we know that the people are very much au fait as to what really happening. And to our viewers, brothers and sisters in Guyana, Caribbean, everywhere, you take note. Now is not what used to happen in the past. Because of technology, people are seeing everything everywhere just at the snap of the finger. And Mr. Lowe made mention earlier that it is time for us to start to air our concern, voice our difficulties. And this is what we have been calling throughout, prior to the campaign, and since this administration took office, that whenever we see things happening, we need to bring it to the light. We need to expose them as to what really happening so that we can be able to move forward. Also, we must realize that the people who are paying the bulk of the taxes are not receiving the benefits that they should. And this is what is hurting a lot of Guyanese, because the public servants are paying pay as you earn. Every month it's coming out here. And we see some other sectors who have been receiving relief money and all these subsidies and so forth, and they are not giving back to the economy. They are sending them money overseas. A lot of persons in the agriculture sector who are, producing so much, and when they receive that money, they are shipping it out to US and Canada. And that is what we are saying, that we need to spend our money in our country so that infrastructure, roads, schools, hospital, all these service can be up to star, up to par, and we can be able to have a good life in Guyana. What are your closing remarks, sir? You see that Guyana can move forward if this system continues, or if there is a change in government? What do you think can happen if there is a change in government in terms of our economic standpoint? What will be the outcome? What will our people benefit should there be a change in government and a new plan comes into play?
Thank you. Well, I want to look at this from two perspectives. And the first is, I have two articles here from 2021 that were in the Culture News. I just want to read them out to you, and I think you might find them interesting. So one article says, Guyana approves blacklisted Chinese contractors to bid for new Demerara River Bridge. Another article says, Chinese firms tendering for Amalia Falls project were blacklisted for procurement fraud. These are the two of the biggest projects that we're currently looking at. And I just find it interesting, that both of these articles, seem to indicate that there might be some problems on the horizon. Now you'll observe that we're seeing Chinese firms that are involved in these large scale projects. Yeah, I believe that the skeleton plant was also constructed by a Chinese firm. The skeleton plant that never worked, and I must say that I find this to be very interesting. Because ultimately one of the main concerns that we have, and one of the big concerns that there was in Venezuela, in addition to them giving away the money, is the level of corruption, the level of money that was stolen and that was sent abroad, and so on and so forth. And so we need to be very vigilant, because as much as we want to have progress, and as much as we're trying to take care of people's real needs, because there is a real need for another bridge, and there is a real need for electricity and so on, we need to be vigilant, because as we observed with the Amalia project before, the costs skyrocketed. And so we need to see what exactly is happening with this new proposal, and how exactly that will benefit Guyanese. The Gas to Shore project is another great example of that, where it started off as 400 million on our administration. Now we're hearing 900 million, so the cost has doubled, more than doubled. And we need to see a clear account of why we're spending so much more. And I believe that former Minister Patterson has called for an inquiry before we go forward with this Gas to Shore project. I would also say to your
Sure.
viewers of
Before you go, you made
yeah.
mention about these companies being blacklisted. What really is that? Our
Yes,
viewers want to know.
I'm happy to clarify. So essentially, the
Thank you
World
very much.
Bank or the IMF or other international organizations that fund projects for developing countries, what they will do is if a country engages in procurement fraud, that is to say, it steals from the government by inflating its prices or something to that effect, or is involved in corruption with some public official where it pays the public official so it can get the contract, these types of corruption, they will be stopped from engaging in any projects that involve World Bank money. That's essentially what blacklisting means. Now,
Thank
for us to be dealing with these companies that have had this history, we must now worry, are these companies, and we don't know, so we'll have to see, are these companies going to engage in procurement fraud? Are they going to bribe people? We don't know. But the fact that there are allegations and that the companies have been dealt with in the past raises real concerns. And, given that we don't have a record in this country of, at least of late, of infrastructure projects that have been successful, Skeldon is a great example of something that never lived up to what it was said to be. We must be very concerned. So, if at all possible, I'd say we shouldn't be dealing with companies that are blacklisted, that are banned by the World Bank. It seems obvious to me that we would try to avoid that as much as possible, and only where absolutely necessary deal with such companies. But is that the approach that's being taken? That doesn't appear to be so, because this is two major projects I'm talking about here, and it's the same headline, and I mean that's concerning. So that's what it means to be blacklisted. That's one element of of what we must be concerned about going forward. But the other element is that again, there's this lack of planning, lack of structure, and that can lead to all sorts of. I give you an example again with the gas to shore project. We still have not seen the study to show that the Wales site is the best site for the gas to shore project. They're saying it is a site, but why did they pick that particular site? Why didn't they locate it in Region 6 as an example, which is closer to a lot of the oil fields? Why aren't they
I
providing
agree.
employment in Region 6? What specific reason? Because it is very concerning that it just seems that the PUP is doing things off the top of their head. That is not the way to be doing public policy. And the other question we must now ask, how much more is this costing the taxpayer for us to have this gas ashore project at a site that might not be ideal? The pipeline will have to be longer, there'll have to be more dredging and so on. So the costs of having it at Wales might be substantial. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, US. Instead of having it in a place like Region 6, perhaps, or on the East Coast, I think was highlighted as the best site, where we can generate employment, especially for people who formerly were in the sugar industry and might be looking for work. We have it over in Wales at a site that it is not at all clear is an ideal
Exactly.
site. And this is what I mean is a real danger to the country, which is that just through mismanagement by the PUP, we can see a lot of our benefits eroded, a lot of our benefits lost. You know, so what we need to do is to see the right plans, the right structures. Even when it comes to the gas itself, there's supposed to be a gas utilization master plan that highlights how we're going to use natural gas, both the current amounts and the amounts that we have offshore that we might want to use in the future. How are we going to use these? Trinidad has a gas utilization master plan, which is over 700 pages. So the fact that we don't have one is again very concerning. And I know that there's some Ghanaian officials here, some technical experts, and so on. And we're happy to get assistance from wherever we can. But in Ghana right now, they're having difficulty because, as was reported in Kaishore, they have much more gas supplied to them than they can use. You see? So again, when I say a gas utilization master plan, how are we going to use this gas? I'm not saying it idly. I'm saying it because it represents proper management of the resources so that we don't end up in one pickle or another and we're not losing money because of poor planning. So poor planning, as well as the potential of theft, Those are the real concerns going forward. And those are things that, having highlighted them, I can assure you that the coalition will not be involved in. The coalition had put in place a Green State Development Strategy, which had a long term focus and gave you a sense of where the country was going. That may, there may be some adjustments and review to that going forward, but there was a strategy, and you could see, where we were headed and why we're doing X, Y, and Z. It is not that somebody just woke up one day, or and said, well, I feel like I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. No, there's structures in place. And so in order for us to maximize, we have to plan and put structures in place, not hope that things will work out, and then when the time comes, you're left wanting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It has been an honor and a privilege to have you tonight. I know that you have done justice to our viewers and listeners, and you show that indeed you are representing the the literature that you read for at that university studying political science and economics. Tonight we have had a mouthful as it relates to what we can do as a people, how we can improve our skill set, transfer of knowledge, price that is going up now. Um, you made mention about the gold scholarship, how they should have put at least 500 um, um, of those scholarship being for oil and gas, and most importantly, the thousands of young people, thousands of young people who have been waiting to get on board in terms of the training. Um, you indicated that the government need to put some system in place to have them come on board so that we all can be able to hold on to the high paying jobs and keep the money in our economy rather than employing foreigners and send our money away. So, Mr. Elson Lowe, thank you very much, sir. It has been a pleasure. Based on the comments coming in, we have done justice tonight. Our people are very much that we have young potentials who are capable, to take the country to a next level, a positive outcome
Well,
after
thank
the
you,
next
thank you
election.
very much, thank you very much for having me. I hope that your listeners are, your viewers are better informed by our conversation. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. God bless. See you soon. Viewers, listeners, there we have had Mr. Elson Lowe, a very dynamic individual, taking us for the past hour on the economic situation in this country. Please stay tuned. Right after this program will be Mark Wenchop with a very prominent face that you have known, an individual who was in the key force in causing all of us to enjoy a good life for the past 5 years in the APNU AFC. Not this year that we're having under the PPP. And brothers and sisters throughout the country could have attested that because of this individual that you will be seeing just now on straight up, and because of him and his good work, we are able to say that we have a better pay package. Our Guyanese people are be able to earn a little bit more. All walks of life, all sectors, private, public, semi-autonomous, all have seen a growth and development in their wages and salaries. So thank you very much. See you next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Stay safe. Enjoy your Diwali. Diwali starts tonight. Dhanteras tonight. Narak Chaturdasi tomorrow. Diwali on Thursday, Govardhan Puja Friday, and Bhai Dooj Saturday. So enjoy your Deepavali or your Diwali and light your diyas. Be very much careful. Stay home and spend it with your family. God bless. Thank you.
This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not baby full time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not baby full time. This ain't a long time, this ain't a long time, this not baby